Hello everyone, I'm James. Today, we're diving into another truly horrifying real-life case. Please support the channel by subscribing and staying active. It really helps me out a lot. I'd be incredibly grateful for that. She raised him, protected him, forgave him countless times. But in the end, her only son turned her love into horror. David Sumney didn't just kill his own mother, he posed with her body again and again. 277 times. And the world would only learn of this nightmare after it was too late. Margaret Ann Sumney was 67. She lived alone in a modest Pittsburgh home, a retired nurse, known for her warmth, her patience, and her tireless love for her son, David. David Lee Sumney Jr., 30 years old, had never quite found his way, jobless, bitter, a past filled with domestic violence, restraining orders, and a string of failed relationships. But Margaret never gave up on him. She let him move back in, gave him a second chance. That chance would cost her life. David had always been trouble. His past was littered with violence against women, against neighbors, and even against himself. In 2014, he was accused of waterboarding a girlfriend. A year later, he broke into another woman's home. Restraining orders followed, arrests piled up, but somehow, he always managed to walk away with a slap on the wrist. Margaret saw her son not as a monster, but as someone broken, someone she could still fix. David Sumney didn't grow up in a broken home. He wasn't beaten. He wasn't starved. In fact, according to former classmates, he had a decent upbringing in South Fayette Township, Pennsylvania. But there was always something off. He was described as charming but manipulative, a kid who would lie without reason. He could switch from sweet to aggressive in seconds. And as he grew into adulthood, his behavior only got darker. He flunked out of college, bounced between jobs. By 2012, police knew his name not as a victim, but as a predator. Margaret Sumney was a devout Catholic and a caregiver by nature. As a nurse, she'd spent decades tending to the sick, the dying, the helpless. But with her son, she couldn't seem to draw a line. Even after he screamed at her, even after he stole from her, even after he was arrested for attacking women, Margaret welcomed him back, again and again. Some say she was too kind, others say she was too afraid. Family friends told reporters Margaret had begun isolating herself in the final years, that she refused to speak about David's violent outbursts. Maybe she hoped he would change. Maybe she thought love alone was enough to fix him. In August 2019, David moved back into his mother's home. He told her he needed help, that he'd changed. Margaret, now alone and aging, agreed, as always. On August 4th, her neighbors saw her for the last time. By August 5th, Margaret Sumney was dead. What happened inside that house was unspeakable. David attacked his mother in the bathroom, beat her, strangled her, left her naked and lifeless on the floor. But it didn't end there. For the next several hours, or maybe even days, David remained in the home. With her body. He shaved his face, took a shower, changed clothes, then he pulled out his phone and began taking selfies. 277 of them. In some, he posed shirtless. In others, he flexed his muscles. Next to his mother's corpse. After the murder, David didn't panic. He didn't run. For hours, possibly longer, he stayed inside the house with his mother's corpse. He shaved, he posed, he documented. Some photos showed him smiling with her blood on his hands, others, grinning in the mirror with her body just out of frame. One image showed a red scribble on the wall, possibly written in blood. "Forgive me." But there was no sign of remorse in his eyes. Detectives later said the scene looked like something from a horror film, but this wasn't fiction. This was calculated. The only question was, why? When police finally arrived, tipped off by a concerned family member, they found Margaret decomposing in the bathroom. But what truly shocked investigators was what they found in David's phone. A gallery of horror. Selfies, photos, videos. In one image, he smiles. In another, he writes on the bathroom mirror with her blood. He'd even Googled, "How long does it take for a body to decompose? How to erase iPhone before police arrive." Forensic psychologists studying the case saw disturbing patterns. David showed signs of narcissistic personality disorder. He craved attention, dominance, and control. Killing his mother may have been less about rage and more about owning the moment. The selfies weren't trophies, they were statements. "Look at me. Look what I did, and I got away with it, for now." In a way, David didn't just murder his mother, he turned her into a prop. A final act of control over the only person who ever truly loved him. The case made national headlines. The public was outraged not just at the crime, but at how the justice system had failed to stop David years ago. At trial, prosecutors pushed for first-degree murder. But in a twist no one saw coming. The plea deal came down. David Sumney only pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter. The 277 selfies deemed too prejudicial to show to a jury. His sentence, 20 years. With possibility of parole in 17. The courtroom was packed. Margaret's family sat in silence as prosecutors prepared to argue first-degree murder. But before the jury was even selected, David's lawyers pushed for a deal. They argued that the case would be too prejudicial, that the photos were too graphic. If shown, the defense claimed they would emotionally compromise the jury. The judge agreed. The 277 selfies were excluded from the trial. In the end, David pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter. His sentence, 20 years, parole eligibility in 17. Margaret's sister sobbed as the judge read the decision. This was not manslaughter. This was execution. When the sentence was made public, social media exploded. "This is a joke," one commenter wrote. "He'll walk free while she rots in the ground." True crime forums lit up with speculation. Why didn't the DA push harder? Were they afraid of the photos? Or was this just another case of the system failing women? A petition was started to reopen the case. It gained over 70,000 signatures in 2 weeks. But legally, the plea was binding. David would serve time. But he would not face a murder conviction. Today, the house where Margaret died has been sold. Her room, her favorite chair, the cross on her wall, gone. Her family says they no longer speak David's name. And David, he's currently serving time in SCI Camp Hill, a Pennsylvania state prison. There, he's known as inmate number JP6379. Prison guards report he's quiet, often smiles. In his cell, they found pages of writing. A self-titled memoir. The first sentence: "My mother always said I was special." Margaret's family called it a betrayal of justice. Her sister stood before the court and said, "He murdered her, then used her corpse for entertainment, and now you let him live." The judge remained silent. David was led away, stone-faced, unapologetic. In prison today, he still takes selfies, still smiles. And his mother, a woman who gave everything, lost everything. At the hands of the one person she loved the most. Margaret Sumney spent her life healing others. And in the end, she was destroyed by the one person she couldn't save. Her story is not just about a murder. It's about the cost of unconditional love and the danger of refusing to see the monster we've raised.